The story begins with a quiet hum, the kind that settles into the bones of every passenger aboard a commercial airliner cruising at 35,000 feet. But for one woman in seat 13F, that hum wasn't just white noise. It was a reminder of a world she had walked away from, one that still whispered her name through the clouds far below. Before everything unfolded, she was simply another face in a row of travelers, leaning back with her eyes half closed, trying to look like she belonged among them. But fate had a strange sense of timing, and today that timing was about to expose what she really was. Before the story moves further, this is United War, the channel where stories of courage, hidden identities, and military legends unfold. If you think you've heard everything, you haven't, not today. Because this story begins as calmly as any flight, yet ends with a moment that left seasoned pilots speechless. Most of the passengers didn't notice anything unusual about her. She wore a simple black hoodie, jeans, and carried nothing but a slim backpack. Her hair was tied back, her posture relaxed, too relaxed for someone who had once been part of the world's deadliest skies. She kept her head down intentionally. The last thing she wanted was attention. She was done with call signs, command briefings, emergency scrambles at dawn. She was done with the pressure of being one of the most skilled pilots the Air Force had ever produced, or so she told herself. The plane continued its steady path above a blanket of clouds. The man beside her kept making small talk, something about turbulence, something about the view, but she barely responded. She didn't want him or anyone else to look too closely, because the truth was, she wasn't retired, she wasn't out. She wasn't even supposed to be on this flight. Somewhere 2,000 miles away, 3 F-22 Raptors were conducting a routine patrol, flying a parallel but distant path. They had no idea that soon they would be locking on to the commercial airliner's frequency and hearing a call sign they believed belonged to a ghost. At row 13, the captain's voice crackled through the speakers, cheerful and unaware. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're entering a mild weather belt, but nothing to worry about." The passengers relaxed, but she didn't. Her fingertips tapped lightly against the armrest, an old habit she couldn't break. She felt pressure changes before sensors detected them. She felt shifts in the air that most people would never notice. That was the curse of someone who had once flown the fastest jet ever engineered. Then it happened, subtle at first, then unmistakable. A jolt, a vibration out of rhythm with the engines. Not turbulence, not wind shear, something mechanical, something external. Her muscles tensed, her eyes opened fully for the first time since takeoff. Passengers looked around. A few chuckled nervously, but she knew the sound, knew the timing, knew the danger. The cabin grew quieter, a thin silence settling over everyone as the aircraft shuddered once more. A mother tightened her grip on her child. A businessman clutched his armrest. The woman in 13F simply sat taller, calculating variables automatically: altitude, velocity, engine pitch. And then she heard it, not inside the plane, but through the faint hum of a guarded military frequency crossing paths with the aircraft's route. The commercial jet's comms were being scanned. Somewhere above them, predators in the sky had taken interest. Her breathing slowed. She didn't turn her head, didn't react outwardly. She just listened. Faint static filtered through the plane's comm systems, unintentionally bleeding into the cabin's wiring. It was so subtle that only someone like her would catch it. She recognized the cadence instantly, an F-22 pilot radio sweep. She whispered under her breath, "Why are Raptors this close?" The pilots overhead likely assumed the frequency bleed was just a minor glitch. They continued their patrol, oblivious to who they were flying above. Then the captain spoke again, voice slightly tighter. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are receiving some unexpected signals from military aviation traffic in the region. All normal, nothing to be alarmed about." The passengers murmured, but she knew better. Civilian planes rarely intersected with active combat aircraft. Something had attracted the Raptor's attention. She shifted subtly, her hand brushing the backpack under the seat. Inside, it wasn't a weapon, wasn't a classified tablet, but something far more dangerous if discovered. A single secure comm device, military-grade, unauthorized for civilian travel, still coded to recognize only one call sign.
Hers. The one she had buried. The one she swore she would never speak again. The one that could change everything if overheard. Then the captain said the one sentence she did not want to hear. "We're being asked to identify ourselves on an alternate frequency." The plane had caught the Raptors' radar interest. Her heart beat slowly, steadily, not from fear, but calculation. Her mind moved through response protocols faster than most could blink. If the pilots attempted to respond incorrectly, if the Raptors suspected a threat, if the situation escalated, she knew exactly what would happen. She exhaled quietly. She knew she could stay silent, stay hidden, remain just another anonymous passenger in seat 13F. But then she heard it, a faint burst through the jet's unintended frequency bleed. A voice, confident, sharp. "Control, this is Raptor 1. We're picking up a coded ghost signature. Can you confirm?" Her blood ran cold. Ghost signature. They meant her. Her presence, her call sign, was still embedded in old encrypted systems somewhere. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, she whispered the word she thought she had escaped. Shadowfire.
As the flight settled into cruising altitude, Mila Torres, still quietly seated in 13F, kept her hood up and her gaze forward. A few passengers slept, others scrolled through their phones. Nobody suspected that the woman sitting between a businessman and a college student had once been the most whispered-about phantom in the U.S. air superiority program. But in the cockpit of the escorting F-22 Raptors, something strange began happening. The two pilots, Lieutenant Hawk and Captain Riker, were running through routine cross-communication checks when a soft encrypted ping flashed across their systems, a frequency that shouldn't exist on a civilian airliner, a frequency used only by one unit, one call sign. Both pilots froze. "Riker, tell me I'm hallucinating," Hawk said through the comms. Riker leaned forward in disbelief. "No. No way. That's impossible." The civilian plane was broadcasting a dormant Special Operations identification signal, one tied to a single person, a person believed retired, a person believed dead by some. A person's name was spoken like a myth in pilot briefings. Call sign, Spectre. Back inside the cabin, Mila didn't react at all. She didn't have to. The signal was automated. A silent handshake protocol buried into a personal device she carried. It never broadcast unless another high-level aircraft scanned her vicinity, and the F-22s had just done exactly that. In the cockpit, Hawk felt the hairs rise on the back of his neck. "Spectre is on that plane," he whispered. "But why? And how?" Riker replied. "Command never briefed us about this." "Command doesn't brief anyone about Spectre," Hawk said. Riker exhaled slowly. "Should we notify Air Command?" Hawk hesitated, then shook his head. "No. If Spectre wanted Command to know she was airborne, Command would already know." Meanwhile, Turbulence nudged the plane, and Mila's fingers tightened around the armrest. She lifted her eyes briefly toward the window, watching the two Raptors glide closer, their silhouettes sharp against the afternoon sky. The businessman next to her chuckled nervously. "Hope that turbulence doesn't get worse." Mila offered a polite smile. "It won't." Her voice was calm, too calm for someone who had felt turbulence like artillery fire and lived through worse. Down on the ground, however, things were no longer calm. At the Air Operations Center, alarms began quietly triggering. Not loud klaxons, just subtle, discreet signals, the kind that went to officers with clearance levels so high their profiles weren't in normal databases. A young analyst noticed a red icon blinking on his classified console. "Sir," he called to his supervisor, "we have a handshake protocol activated from civilian airliner Flight 708. The supervisor's face stiffened. "Which protocol?" The analyst swallowed. He clicked, and then looked as if he had seen a ghost. "Spectres." The supervisor didn't answer. He simply walked,
fast, straight to the Director of Air Security's door, knocking once before entering without waiting for permission. Back in the sky, Hawk switched to a private encrypted channel. Spectre 13F, this is Raptor lead. If you can hear us, do you require assistance? No response. He tried again. Silence. Riker frowned. You think she's ignoring us? No, Hawk said. I think she's staying dark for a reason. And he was right. Mila had heard everything. Her specialized earpiece hidden beneath her hair picked up the encrypted message, but she didn't reply. Couldn't reply. Not yet. She quietly observed the aircraft wing flexing outside her window, her mind calculating flight patterns, escort routes, and the tactical meaning behind the Raptors' increasing proximity. Something wasn't normal. She could feel it. The college student beside her nudged her lightly. You fly a lot? Mila nodded, keeping her voice low. Enough to know when something's off. And then it happened. A second, more aggressive encrypted signal swept across the sky. A signal not from the Raptors. A signal that jammed momentarily, causing lights inside the cockpit to flicker and sensors to spike. Hawk cursed. What the? That wasn't ours? Riker checked his radar. I'm picking up, I don't know, something scrambled. Something foreign. Both pilots knew exactly what that meant. They just didn't want to say it. Inside the cabin, Mila's eyes slowly lifted, sharp, aware. She felt it too. An air signature. Out of place. Wrong. The businessman beside her raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? Mila didn't answer. Her jaw tightened slightly. A storm wasn't coming. Something else was. Something that made the presence of Spectre suddenly very, very necessary.
The cabin lights dimmed slightly as Flight 708 cruised over open ocean, but Mila Torres, Spectre, no longer saw the peaceful scene around her. She was listening to the sky. Not with her ears, though she had the discreet earpiece for that, but with her instincts. The instincts forged from years inside operations most military personnel only heard rumors about. The foreign signature she detected wasn't just unusual, it didn't belong there at all. While passengers around her sipped drinks and flipped through movies, Mila tracked the subtle change in engine hum, the faint shifts in altitude, and the increasingly aggressive flight pattern of the escorting F-22s. In the cockpit of the jets, Hawk and Riker were already tense. Contact is in our radar shadow, Riker said, voice low. Whoever they are, they're riding our blind spot like they know exactly where it is. Hawk narrowed his eyes. That's military knowledge. Our military knowledge. Riker nodded, which means someone else out here has our playbook. Another spike blipped onto their sensors, brief, sharp, and unmistakably hostile. Damn it, Hawk muttered. This isn't some lost aircraft. Someone is probing us. Back in the passenger cabin, Mila exhaled slowly. She reached under her seat, where her small personal bag was stowed. Inside was nothing a civilian would ever notice. But military eyes, the right kind, would recognize the slim, matte black tablet with no branding and one small insignia burned into the corner. An insignia so classified it was never printed in official documents. Her thumb pressed onto its surface. The screen lit up with a cascade of encrypted symbols. Then her earpiece crackled. Spectre 13F, Hawk whispered to the channel. If you can hear this, we may have incoming. This time she replied. Her voice was low, calm, and controlled. Raptor lead, how many signatures? Hawk nearly choked. Copy? Spectre, you're confirming? Number, Hawk. Her tone held a quiet authority that officers twice her rank had once obeyed without hesitation. Riker responded. 3 unknown signatures, shadowing us. Close formation. Vector? She asked. Southwest quadrant. They're using ghost band emissions to avoid full detection. Mila didn't respond immediately. Behind her, the college student was leaning forward to plug in his charger. The businessman beside her folded his newspaper. The world continued as if nothing had changed. Then, they're not circling, she finally said. They're waiting. Hawk felt his stomach tighten. Waiting for what? For this plane to be alone. Riker looked at the ocean below. We're alone now. And Mila knew it. She could feel the isolation. The invisible bubble where help would take too long to reach. She lifted her gaze toward the window. The F-22s had drawn closer. Too close for routine escort. Close enough to block a missile. Or intercept a threat. Hawk's voice crackled in her ear again. "Spectre, we need direction. This isn't in our briefing." "No," she said softly. "It wouldn't be." Then she added, "Patch me through to the civilian cockpit." Riker hesitated. "That's against protocol." Mila's reply was immediate. "Everything about this situation is outside protocol." 2 seconds passed. Then, "Patching through," Hawk said. In the cockpit of the commercial jet, the captain jumped slightly when a secure channel opened and an encoded female voice spoke. "This is Spectre. You have 3 hostile aircraft riding your lower quadrant. Maintain current course. Do not climb, do not descend." The captain blinked. "Spectre? As in, ma'am, this is a commercial flight. We don't have clearance for this." "You do now," she said simply. Her tone cut through every doubt. While the pilots scrambled to stabilize their nerves, the aircraft continued its steady path through the sky. Passengers had no idea the next 5 minutes would determine everything. Mila leaned back in her seat, her breathing steady, her mind calculating angles, distances, speeds, and possibilities. The businessman next to her glanced at her calm posture. "You're really not worried about the turbulence, huh?" Mila allowed a faint smile. "No. Turbulence isn't the thing to fear." Far outside the window, the ocean shimmered. And then, a dark shadow slipped just beneath the clouds. Hawk saw it at the same time Mila felt it. "Contact emerging," yelled Riker. They're rising fast." The F-22 snapped into defensive formation. The unknown aircraft, sleek, unfamiliar, and unmarked, broke through the clouds like a predator, revealing itself. Hawk's eyes widened. That's no model we've ever flown against." Riker's voice dropped. "Spectre, what do we do?" But Mila Torres, Spectre, was already sitting forward in her seat, her fingers gripping the edges of her armrests as she listened to the foreign jet signature. She knew it. She recognized it instantly, and her eyes narrowed. "This isn't random," she whispered into the channel. "They're not here for the plane." Silence. Then she said what no one wanted to hear. "They're here for me." And at that moment, the unknown jet fired the first warning burst. Screams filled the cabin. People grabbed their seats. The plane jolted violently. And the sky, the entire sky, erupted into chaos.
The first burst of gunfire ripped past the aircraft's nose, slicing through the clouds and illuminating the cabin with streaks of unnatural white light. Passengers screamed. Oxygen masks dropped. The plane shook so violently that even the flight attendants fell to the floor. But in seat 13F, Mila Torres did not panic. She unbuckled her seatbelt. For the first time since the flight had taken off, she stood. The businessman beside her stared at her like she'd gone insane. Miss, sit down. We're under attack." Mila didn't even glance at him. Her mind was focused, cold, and calculating, as if her entire life had been leading to this moment. Her earpiece crackled. "Spectre, they fired again," Riker shouted. "Another burst just grazed the left wing." Hawk's breathing shook. "We can't get a shot. They're too close to the commercial jet." Mila pressed a hand against the ceiling to steady herself as the aircraft jolted again. "Clear me a vector," she said. Riker blinked. "Clear you a... Spectre, you're on a civilian plane." "Clear me a vector." Her voice was calm. Deadly calm. Hawk swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am." The cabin descended into chaos. The pilot shouted over the intercom, "Brace! Brace! Brace!" Families clutched one another. A baby wailed. The old man 2 rows ahead prayed loudly. But Mila walked forward, down the aisle with perfect balance, as if the chaos around her existed on a different frequency. Her hand reached into her bag again. This time she retrieved something small, not much bigger than a TV remote. A matte black device with an inlaid emblem no civilian in the world would recognize. The Spectre beacon. Restricted tech. Prototype level. Not supposed to exist. She held it down at her side, then pressed her thumb to the trigger pad.
The cabin lights flickered. A faint pulse radiated outward, invisible to human eyes, but unmistakable to military systems. Far outside, Hawk's and Riker's HUDs lit up. "Holy! Hawk, do you see that?" Hawk exhaled hard. Yes, Spectre just activated a black tier beacon. Riker's voice was a whisper. "That means she has authority above us, above our base, above Central Command." Hawk nodded once. "Above everyone." The hunters reveal themselves. The unknown aircraft, sleek, dark, predator-like, broke formation and swung around for another pass. Its pilot spoke in an encrypted channel only Mila could understand. "Spectre, you were supposed to stay buried." She didn't flinch. "You shouldn't have come into my sky." The unknown jet pulled into attack alignment. Hawk and Riker tried to intercept, but the target zigzagged with unnatural precision, almost dancing around their lock-ons. "Spectre, we can't hold them off," Hawk shouted. "You won't need to," she responded quietly. And then, she pressed a second button. The sky opens up. From beyond the clouds, so far away the passengers couldn't see it, a rumble began. A low, rolling thunder. Not natural, mechanical, controlled. Then, 3 F-35s ripped through the sky like spears of lightning. No insignias, no squadron markings. Ghost Squadron. The squadron that officially did not exist. Ghost lead reporting. "Spectre, we have your signal." Hawk's mouth fell open inside his helmet. "You've got to be kidding me." Riker whispered. "The stories were true." Ghost Squadron encircled the commercial jet, forming a protective halo around it. The unknown hostile aircraft stalled mid-flight, for the first time, uncertain. The confrontation. The leader of Ghost Squadron spoke again. "Spectre, permission to engage." Mila's eyes narrowed at the hostile jet, still shadowing the civilian plane like a shark circling prey. She took a slow breath. "Confirm identity," she said. Ghost lead stand. Black Vulture Unit, rogue, ex-military, mercenary funded. Mila closed her eyes for a half-second. She knew them. She had trained with some of them. Black Vulture was a ghost from her past, the kind of ghost that refused to stay buried. She opened her eyes. "Ghost Squadron," she said softly. "Permission granted." The aerial battle. In less than 3 seconds, Ghost lead locked on. Ghost 2 flanked left. Ghost 3 climbed to high altitude. A missile streaked past the commercial jet, away from passengers, precisely angled, and clipped the hostile aircraft's wingtip. Hawk and Riker moved in immediately, finally able to join the fight. The sky became a ballet of machines. Ghost Squadron cut through the air like they were born in it. Hawk and Riker harassed the hostile unit, forcing evasive maneuvers. Black Vulture fought hard, spiraling and jerking violently to escape. But then, Mila spoke into the channel again. "Vector 217. Altitude drop 400. They'll break right." Ghost lead obeyed instantly. 3 seconds later, the hostile jet made the exact maneuver she predicted. Ghost lead fired. Direct hit. The enemy aircraft spiraled downward, fire trailing from its engines. As it fell, the pilot's voice hissed through Mila's earpiece. "This isn't over, Spectre." Then silence. Only the roar of friendly engines remained. Aftermath. The cabin steadied. Passengers wiped tears, hugged strangers, prayed, collapsed into their seats. The captain, still shaking, opened a channel. "Spectre, whoever you are, thank you." But Mila Torres, Spectre, had already returned to C-13F. Before anyone noticed she'd ever left, she buckled her seatbelt, closed her eyes, and breathed. Hawk's voice came through the channel once more, quieter this time. Spectre, for what it's worth, it was an honor. Mila opened her eyes slightly. It always is. Ghost Squadron formed a silent escort around the commercial jet, guiding it towards safe airspace. No one on that flight would ever know the truth about the woman in 13F. They'd only remember that something happened. Something terrifying. Something that shouldn't have happened. But the sky would remember her. Because the moment she spoke, the moment she stood, the sky itself took her side. Spectre, the ghost who never misses. And the woman no pilot should ever underestimate.